Have you not listened to your elders, my friend?
I've listened to the elder, but I don't listen to.
Okay, you have.
Welcome to Right Between the Eyes podcast, a KISS podcast with 3 generations of KISS fans telling you why we love it loud. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Right Between the Eyes podcast, a KISS podcast that's telling you why we love it loud. I'm one of your hosts, Rob Myers. Welcome to RBTE V9, if I'm saying that right. So this is another solo little video here for me as we are trying to get the RBTE train reconnected and get the power back on here. Scheduling has been the bane of our existence lately. So I think that the Carusos and I are trying to get things back in order so we can get episodes back out this year. 2024 was kind of hit or miss for us, and we've already missed a January episode, and I'm hoping to be able to record a February proper full episode with the Carusos and myself, and then maybe some other RBTE and KISS Army family members in general going out into 2024. So I know there's some other guests that I want to have on here and some new faces as well to RBTE. So a lot to look forward to. This is kind of an impromptu little video here as it is a Sunday, February 16th. And my birthday was the 10th. And not that this is supposed to be, oh, hey, Rob, happy birthday type deal. But if you do, thank you. But I was sick over my birthday. And I think we had kind of floated the idea that we might try and do some recording. But with me being sick, and you can probably hear it even here. And as I'm talking to you, I'm realizing the shirt that I'm wearing is wrinkled. And I know it's one of those things they say, don't point it out. But as I see myself in the camera, I'm like, clearly this was at the bottom of my, anyway, Paul Stanley's Pizza. It's still good. Anyway, but with that, knowing that I have a February birthday and living in Ohio, sometimes God just says, hey, you know, the plans that you have for your birthday, well, I'm going to give a lot of snow, or I'm going to give a lot of weather to your way that's going to make your plans a little bit dicey. Oh, and by the way, you're going to get sick this year on your birthday. So my birthday was on a Monday, and I thought, okay, for the weekend, we're going to go out and we're going to do some, record shopping. We're going to go out and go eat some of my favorite places. And I was still getting over being sick. So fast forward, to this week, my wife was like, okay, since your birthday week and it didn't kind of go as planned, let's try and go out again. And we just skated in under another snowstorm that came today, but we went out yesterday and I picked up something. Now, in fancy editing, I'm going to try and go to the record store, which I'm going to give a shout out to Spoonful of Records in Columbus, Ohio. A great shop. It's in the middle of downtown. There's a bunch of other record stores around the area. And this one's I wouldn't say a little harder. It's a little farther away for us to get to from where we live. Getting to our state capital in Columbus is about an hour and 40-ish, hour and a half, depending on where we're going in Columbus. With this being downtown, and it was crazy traffic, which was also kind of odd on a Saturday. It was overcast, it was rainy, and we were kind of like, what knuckleheads are out here on the road, including this guy and his wife. But neither here nor there. We were sitting on our couch, and I was debating like, they're calling for weather, and it was kind of dreary. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe we'll just float my birthday trip to another weekend, or maybe we'll do it in March or something like that. So as I was scrolling through on Facebook, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to capture the video to put it up here of, record stores say, hey, we got a bunch of, new vinyl in or CDs or whatever it might be. And they flip through their new hauls. And I saw, a bunch of somethings on their Facebook page. I looked over at my wife and she was like, okay, how soon are we going? Do we need to go? And it was like, I want to buy something. I need to reach out. I'm also saving for a concert. So that's coming up in March. We have another one at the end of February where I'm like, oh, money's kind of thin. She's like, well, it's your birthday. Let's just go. And we call it, let's go have an adventure. So I'm going to put up the video right here so you can see. So Rob, this is where you're going to edit. So, yeah, you saw all of that. So I literally caught the video a minute after it was uploaded. Just dumb luck on my part scrolling through. And if you've been following our social media, you probably know the thing that I'm going to get ready to talk about. And depending how I title this video will also obviously give it away to what you're getting ready to watch. And my shirt is so wrinkled. Don't pay attention to the shirt being wrinkled, Rob. And the backdrop behind me over here. There you go. So I've said on our podcast before, and the very first album we reviewed, let's just get the cat out of the bag right now, the elephant in the room. Hot in the Shade was the very first album that we reviewed as a podcast on here. I think it was on our 5th episode or 4th episode of the show. And it was my first Kiss album ever. I was aware of Kiss as I was, a young child. I remember having the Kiss cards, and I must have kind of known, like, I don't think my mom likes this. So I remember crawling up underneath my bed as a kid and putting them under like the little cubby holes in my bed or whatever. And then kind of seeing public access shows. If you live around the Ohio area, 321 Contact, the Bloodhound Gang, go look up look up 321 Contact. There's an episode on Kiss that's really cool. I'd like to have Nick and Nico watch it sometime and talk about it because I remember seeing it as a kid. But going through high school and going through my pop phase and listening to the pop music of the day, I think I remember going like Rock and Roll All Night. I think I know that's Kiss. And I was aware of, Crazy Nights, I think, and I could identify Heaven's on Fire. So like I knew a little bit. I couldn't tell you who was in the band or what album or anything. But December 2nd, 1989, my best friend Ben and I had come up to my house. Our town has a local or an annual Christmas in the Village, they call it. So he had Farmer Vision back out in 1989, and we had just recently got cable. So I was always taping MTV, and I started taping Headbangers Ball. And one of the videos that I ended up recording was Hide Your Heart. And Ben and I instantly were like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is amazing. Wow, this is Kiss. And I don't know if we had known or connected the dots that they weren't wearing makeup anymore, but it's not what we thought Kiss was. So Hot in the Shade became he and I's very first Kiss album. That was a Saturday. So the following Monday after school, he and I both went to the record store and I picked up my very first Kiss album ever. And this is it. This is the one that made me a Kiss fan. And I keep saying on the podcast, the Carusos and I are going to do a show that's going to be called I Didn't Know I Was Supposed to Like That. I think we can get a lot of mileage out of that show. So this is one of those albums, and I'm glad the internet didn't exist, because the internet would have told me, you're not supposed to like Hot in the Shade, it's bloated, it's got 15 songs. In the day and age when this came out, you had CDs that were just right around the corner, and cassettes were starting to get bigger and bigger. You could get, 90-minute, 120-minute cassette tapes. But because of CDs, Paul and Gene were like, hey, we have 70 to 80 minutes of space available. Let's just put out a lot. And that always kind of baffled me when people kind of look at Hot in the Shade, or you get to like, we do the thing called the 9 on this podcast where we whittle everything down to 9 songs. But if I'm being honest, if an artist wants to give me more music, why am I going to complain? Like, this just feels really bloated. They're just putting songs for the sake of songs. I don't want to spend $15 or $12 or $30 or whatever it is on just a 9-song album, when I'm realizing you could do a double album. You could put 15 songs on something and I can get more music. So for about a 2-week period, which seemed like an eternity to a freshman in high school, when this was the only Kiss album I had, I played this over and over and over and over again. And he and I were both just kind of poring over the album. What songs were like? The guitar solo was cool. Oh, Eric's drums sound really awesome. Gene's got some really cool songs. Oh my gosh, Eric Carr has a lead vocal. And then eventually we got a mixtape and we started getting more and more Kiss albums, and so goes the journey. But Ben and I have said that this instantly transports us back into a time where we were young kids in high school and we were just really discovering, who we are and what what music we were latching onto, and it was Kiss, and it was this era of Kiss. So it's always been one of those that I always say it's in my top 5 easily. I'm now saying things like it's in my top 3 albums of all time, and especially in the Kiss realm, where I always cite Revenge, Carnival Souls, Hot in the Shade, Creatures of the Night, and I feel like that's kind of an ever churning depending on the day. Recently, I've been really kind of thinking, with it being my first album, is it actually my favorite Kiss album? I always say Revenge because that was my senior year in high school. Ben and I saw Kiss for the first time. Our parents wouldn't let us go in 1990 to go see Kiss. We were too young, and we don't know who those other kids are in high school that the whole band of people were going, and it kind of crushed Ben and I to see people come into school the next day wearing their Kiss t-shirts going, oh man, we missed our first Kiss concert. So I think the experience of the Revenge album being the first new Kiss album as fans that we were buying on release day, that we ended up going to the tour, that kind of just encapsulated our fandom, and Revenge has always kind of been that benchmark that it's our favorite album. I think as time goes on, and after the internet and, you know, Kiss fanzines and things like that, you start reading things in magazines or start seeing posts, you know, now that we're in our 50s and going, wow, some people don't like Hot in the Shade. I could just remember going, I don't get the hate for this album, especially when I say on this show, you remember your first Kiss. And I think that's a special thing. However you are introduced to any band or anything, that first thing that makes you a fan of something is always really special. And sometimes these communities can really kind of suck, because a friend of mine says, I'm not going to yuck on somebody else's yum. If that's the thing that got you into the elevator, as Paul Stanley says, it doesn't matter what floor you got off on. No pun intended there. Sorry, Jean, that's what she said. But it's one of those, we're just glad you came to the party. So as more time has gone on, Hot in the Shade has kind of become something I really latch onto. I found this banner at a music store, and it's got some holes in it. I remember seeing this banner at a carnival, trying to throw darts to, you know, pop a balloon, and, you know, all those carnival games were like, I don't know how anybody wins something like this. So the fact that I found this banner was something I've always wanted. I still want one of those mirrors, and anybody from the 80s knows those carnival mirrors. There was a Hot in the Shade mirror. I can see it clear as day. That's something I'm trying to find somewhere. But I always seem to kind of come back to this album somehow, some way. So as the podcast was just in its infancy and we were kind of under COVID when everybody was buying records, I thought, I wonder if I can find, you know, Hot in the Shade on vinyl. I wonder how hard that's going to be able to come across. And the 2014 vinyl releases were out, and I remember seeing Hot in the Shade, and at the time I was still kind of collecting superhero stuff, and I remember my wife going, I don't know why you want to try and collect records at the same time. So it was like I was in two minds of what I was wanting to collect and what I was wanting to do. And once I kind of said, like, okay, I want to get back into music, this is the thing that I love, I remember seeing, I picked this up from Amazon, which is really kind of crazy. So I don't remember. It had to have been a third-party seller. It had to have been something that was on KOL. But the first version of Hot in the Shade that I got was the 30th anniversary. And I'll pull the vinyl. And here's how I'm kind of a big component of saying, like, this is how I bag and board my albums. And I'll just do like a little like, well, why do you have the record on the outside? For those of us that have some classic records, you know, the ring wear that you'd see for the album getting pulled in and out and in and out, as it were. This kind of helps avoid static of your record going in and out, and it gets it out of that crappy paper sleeve. So this was something I was really excited to get, and I've got my little label back here. It says U.S. released in 2019. So this was right at, you know, kind of the start of COVID. 180 grams, 30th anniversary, clear blue. So this is where Rick would be like, come into the light. And it does come with the, lyrics and the sleeve. So I will pull this out here. Very cool pressing. And this, ironically, aside from, I think I've had Sonic Boom, but when I really was like, okay, we're in this COVID time and we're kind of gearing up potentially to see my end of the road tour for Clarkston, Michigan, which you go back through the podcast and everybody knows that COVID really screwed everything up. But I was like, I kind of want my air quote first album kind of getting back into collecting Kiss albums again to be Hot in the Shade. So I was very happy to get this. This is actually a really pretty good pressing, especially with it being 180 grams. And I was happy to go, all right, I'm not going to find an original pressing of the album. I'm trying to keep my eye out there to get a 2014 pressing, and maybe I'll find it. I still really haven't, but being able to have the 30th anniversary pressing, I thought that was really kind of fitting. I thought it was kind of cool that it was in this clear blue. And I'm like, okay, I can check this album off my list and kind of work my way through the Kiss vinyls as have all the CDs. Now let's try and see if I can at least get the studio albums, and we'll worry about greatest hits and live albums after that. So, and I also always pull off the hype sticker if I can, if it comes off, and I transfer it to the new bag. So I always kind of keep the hype sticker. If it doesn't want to come off, I'll cut it, but that's not why we're here. So that's just kind of how it was. And I went through my Kiss vinyl collecting, and as I saw different albums, I would pick it up. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, Hot in the Shade, Hot in the Shade, Hot in the Shade, Revenge, Creatures. Those are the three. And Carnival, can't forget that one. So those are always the ones I was always kind of seeing, like, what different variant pressings can I get and different things. And then I think it was the Christmas of 22, maybe, I went to a local record store in the month of December, where I discovered this record shop not that far away from us, and I stumbled across this. This is the BMG Columbia, or Clubhouse edition. So for those of us in the 80s growing up in 70s, you tape a penny, you buy X number of records. So I knew that there were vinyl records still being made that you could go to a record store and get, but vinyl getting into the late 80s and early 90s was getting harder to come by because everybody was switching over to CDs, and cassettes were still available, but even those were starting to get more and more phased out, where CD was becoming the primary thing. So for a lot of people, the only way to still get vinyl was through record clubs, Columbia House or BMG. So this one does have the BMG logo up here in the corner. So instead of the barcode, you do see where it says made for BMG direct marketing under license, 6500 East 30th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. So Xander, if you're watching, you got to go find that. And I may have even said the address wrong, as it's so tiny I don't have my readers on. But so seeing that, going, okay, that's close. Technically, it's a first pressing of sorts, at least as far as getting an album that was released in 1989. If I get this upside down. And this definitely is not 180 grams. It's, a little on the light and the wobbly side here. And I was really shocked. And I went into the record store, happened to have a Kiss t-shirt on, and we were talking back and forth about, the band and all that stuff, as you would with record shop. And when he asked me what my first album was, he said, well, what my favorite album was, or what's the album that got you into the Kiss. And I told him the story of December 2nd, 1989, Ben and I went through that whole story. He was like, okay, I think I have something for you. He goes, I wasn't planning on selling this, but he goes, I could tell you're a big Kiss fan. He goes, and I could tell you're an even bigger fan of the non-makeup era of Kiss. And he agreed to part with this. So it wasn't overly expensive, but I was kind of like, okay, I can all but check off finding an original pressing of the first Kiss album I ever got. So I went from cassette. I should have pulled the CD out, but I've got the CD. And I was like, all right, that's probably as far as I'm going to get. Now I'm just kind of on the hunt for a 2014 reissue from Kiss, and then I can kind of check everything off my list as far as Hot in the Shade goes. And then from Spoonful of Records, I saw this video. So I caught it just in the 1 minute after they had posted it. I remember looking at my wife, and she was like, okay, I think we need to go on a birthday adventure. And I found this, an original first pressing of Hot in the Shade with the original hype sticker and in its original cellophane plastic. Now, I was always one of those that I'm like, I'm going to take that off. You know, I'll take the cellophane off. I'll remove this. But the fact that it's in such good condition, I'm not going to do that. So I was going to pull this out of the bag. You can clearly see it's still shrink wrapped here, and they have, you know, slit the side as a lot of people do and pulled the record out. But it's kind of little staticky because I've got another plastic in here. So it's a little harder to pull out the jacket. And with sleeving it, I don't have any reason to pull it out, but I do have the, you know, there is the back of the original barcode. And then here is the original inner sleeve. And then I have re-sleeved this record. And there is the stamp on there. 422 838913-1Q1. Original first pressing of Hot in the Shade on vinyl. This was something I didn't think I was going to see, and thought this is going to go for a crazy amount of money. And I only paid $50 for it. Now, some people say that may be the running go of it. And if I think about it and I put up the Discogs version up here, again, anything that you collect is only worth what somebody is willing to pay for it. As I'm trying to slip this back in here very carefully. I am going to play this though. I want to hear the original vinyl version of this album. But this was for my birthday, being that I was sick during it and didn't get to go out and do the things that I wanted to go do. Everything all worked for a reason, that we had even decided like, maybe we're just not going to go anywhere, you know, yesterday being Saturday. And then upon seeing this is something I've been looking for a long time. And as I realized I cut footage here because I got to a little coughing fit, I was starting to say something is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. In December of last year, a first pressing did sell for about $300. And I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, it's worth $300. It might be to somebody. So I don't know if the record store didn't know necessarily what they had, or if they thought, if we put this for $300, we're not gonna sell it in the store. We're trying to sell this. It came from a Kiss collector, and there was a lot of Kiss albums in the store, and they had sold a bunch before I got there. I know I saw Revenge, I saw Alive 3, all of the solo albums, all the solo albums on Picture Disc, Dress to Kill, Alive, Asylum, and there was much more. There was another one that I was kind of looking at, that I was kind of thinking about getting. It was a Japanese, and you saw it in the video, a Japanese pressing of The Elder that came with that wonderful front cover over top of it, the little like slip sheet and the obi strip. That was something I was really kind of thinking about, but it had sold, and I did message them as soon as I saw this. I messaged them on Facebook, and I thought, screw this, I'm actually going to call them, and they held this back for me. So I just kind of wanted to share everybody uses Grail to different means. When somebody's going to go, oh, you're referring to this as a Grail. It's a Grail for me, knowing that I started here and I went from CD and I was able to get a 30th anniversary. In the back of my mind, I was always like, man, I've always loved this hype sticker. This huge hype sticker I think is so cool. Very reminiscent of the, stamp here, as if it's a postcard or something from the post office. And just having Hide Your Heart Forever and Read My Body. Reading that on here, I'm like, oh wow, those are going to be the first 3 singles, and there is an alternate universe where Read My Body was released as a single, and it got played live, and it went over great. I'm going to find a portal somewhere to that alternate universe and live in that world where the Read My Body video was on MTV. And it is one of those, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to like Read My Body, and I love Read My Body. Are the letters big enough? Yes, they are. This made my day driving home in almost white knuckle traffic in the rain and kind of fog, but the trip down was wonderful. We just had a nice drive, and well, as far as the roads go in Columbus. But in all seriousness, this also kind of rejuvenated me wanting to do videos like this, because it has been kind of hard with Nico, and I just not being able to latch on to some type of recording session, or we've gotten sick, or there's been a death in the family. And like those things are going to happen in your everyday life. But we've kind of struggled in the back half of 2024 and getting into this year of getting the podcast back up and running. And buying this has kind of sparked in like, I want to continue to keep doing videos and keep doing episodes with the Carusos, with whomever we can get on the show. Even if it's, I'm going to do a placeholder video, the V series, RBTE V. I may keep that going, maybe in lieu of us not getting proper episodes out, getting to do a little something here. If it's 15, 20 minutes, kind of taking a page from Rick, going, hey, I've got this specific thing I want to talk about, and once I've got it out and done, it could be 6 minutes, it could be 60 minutes, it could be 26 minutes. So be on the lookout for more content from RBTE through our social medias, and then here on YouTube, and then hoping to get proper episodes back out on the audio version of the podcast and here as well. And then also plugging Vigilante 1939 for the Carusos and Nick Zednick. They have a wonderful show there as well, doing a lot of superhero stuff. And then me, I'm going to be firing up Rogue Record Music here, because I bought something else down there. Since I couldn't find that Elder, I found another band that I love very much, and there's a lot of their stuff right there, which you can kind of probably see their name right here. Their new album came out February 7th. So while I was sick, I got to hear that. I found another one of their albums, and I want to talk about box sets. So I don't want to, I'm not spoiling anything. It's been out. We're a little low to the start, but I don't want to get into too much to the discussion, because I know the Carusos and I are going to want to talk about it. The information that was dropped during Eric Singer's auction that he was having, where he and Keith LaRue had said that we're going to get more off the soundboards, and there's going to be 2 box sets coming this year. So that's something to talk about. And one thing I kind of will probably do on Rogue Record Music and kind of loosely reference Kiss is, I'm just going to say Dream Theater has been putting out some box sets for all their albums lately. They're about a third of the price than what Kiss has been charging. So I do have both Kiss box sets, being Destroyer and Creatures of the Night, but if they're going to continue to be at the price point that they are, that's a big pill to swallow financially, when I can go, yeah, I would love to have all the tchotchkes and the books and the CDs and all that stuff. They did re-release Creatures of the Night and put out a vinyl version of it, but it was $1,000. There's no way that needs to be $1,000. So I'm going to kind of table that here because that's not what this video was about, but it is something I'm going to be talking about on Rogue Record Music, talking about Dream Theater's new album Parasomnia, and going through like what is in the Dream Theater box sets, and even Kiss My Wax that has done some box sets for Ace Frehley and the band Slaughter, and going, how can these bands and Kiss My Wax be charging this price and giving us some great content, but Kiss is charging us this price and giving us about the same content for more money? So that's where we're going to put a pin in it for this one. I kind of went off on a tangent. This was a video for me being able to get back and get reacquainted with my first love of being my first Kiss album, Hot in the Shade, that I finally was able to track down a first pressing of it and grease the wheels for the podcast. Let's get this thing back up and running and bring more content. If it's one of us, two of us, three of us, I have three fingers up already, or more, RBTE is back and running. Let's get this thing going. I think we're going to be off for some great content, not only from us, but just some good stuff from Kiss and Pop House. Now that we've had a year of 2024 where not much happened, I think 2025, by the time we get to this point, get to December of 2025, I hope we can look back in the past and go, oh, wow, we got a lot of stuff. What did we pick up? We'll find along the way. But on the behalf of Nick and Nico, this is Rob, and you've been watching Right Between the Eyes podcast, a podcast that's all about turning it up because we love it loud. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.